sea, tea, and remarkable amounts of theft. The British Empire once stood upon the height of the world, magnificent in its splendour and dubious in its methods. Today we'll explore how Britain became a melting pot of cultures, beliefs and trade, but still came out of it as the most boring people on earth, save for the Germans. The British Empire officially began in the late 1500s under Queen Elizabeth I, also seen here as her alias Humpty Dumpty. According to the Crown's own website, she never married foreign princes to avoid being dragged into international conflicts, and never married within the country to avoid factional infighting. This, I feel, is less likely than the fact that if she were to have married, then she would no longer be the sovereign, and give her power to some fopdoodle, a word you would have learnt if you'd also watched my weird sports video. Like, comment and subscribe. Therefore, Queen Elizabeth I was the first case ever recorded of a single black queen who doesn't need no man. Establishing the East India Company in 1599 and commissioning voyages to the New World, she ensured that the British would be right up there in the race to harass minorities worldwide, something fully ingrained into British culture. It turns out that if you sail around the world with guns rather than pointy sticks, you can walk around and steal literally anything that isn't nailed down. Marvellous! Make room on the boat, Clarence. We have another one to take home to Our Majesty.
This is a holy icon. You cannot take it.
Any questions? Thank you, fuck you, bye. The irony is the Natural History Museum, situated in London, contains more stolen goods than the Liverpool Council House, but it herself has had over 1,500 artefacts classified as stolen or missing. The skull of my great ancestor, Mahala the Great, stolen from my people, will be returned once more.
Watch out, lad, don't forget the lasers.
Thank you, my good friend. They almost got me there.
Yeah, they got them in co-ops, no worries.
Spreading faster than chlamydia at Freshers' Week at university, the British Empire surged across the world to establish various colonies. The word colonies tends to imply that people are sent to establish civilization in the unkept barren lands of the unknown. But really, they just turned up and plundered the indigenous people's supplies and individuals. Famously Pocahontas, framed by Disney as a love story, reaching beyond the language and cultural divide of a warring people. In reality, she was abducted and stolen away to England at 14, the colonial equivalent of being promised free sweets in the back of a Ford Transit van. The worst part of her internment in England was having to rename from the cool name of Pocahontas to Rebecca, a fate worse than death. The British at the time claimed that it was their duty to colonise and educate the tribal and lesser peoples of the world to the civilised way of the West, which is wild because at the time the hovel was the height of luxury for the average Brit. This week on Homes Under the Hammer, Timothy Tootsie and Margaret are looking for downsize from their one-room shack to a more cosy hole in the ground. In reality, they'd seen how wealthy the Spanish had become with their newfound ownership of 80% of the world's silver from their South American colonies, which also doubled as mass murder exercises. Not to mention they were spreading Catholicism. Yuck. I'd argue that the worst part about being an indigenous native was not the kidnapping, murder and extortion, but having to sit through copious amounts of nativity plays.
It is I, the brave British soldier, come to smite the savages. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so proud. Did they have to use real weapons? Or worse still, church services.
Oh shit.
The worst mistake the British ever made was establishing the 13 colonies that would go on to eventually become the... Sorry, it's difficult to say. The United States of America. Not because we have to listen to Kardashian news entirely against my will, but because of their absolute barbaric treatment of innocent tea during the Boston Tea Harbour incident. The British people were absolutely outraged by this course of events, because we'd worked so hard to farm and obtain this most blessed of ingredient. And by farm and obtain, I really mean murdering the Chinese. The British at the harbour, who didn't immediately die from shock, attempted to heat up the water to make one giant cup of tea in a futile attempt to salvage those wonderful leaves. Still to this day, if you drop a tea bag into cold water in front of a British person, they will collapse in rageful spasms. Tea has become a fixture of British life, and what has historically made all of those horrific war crimes totally worth it. It turns out that British people prefer the familiar when sourcing exotic goods, so it became good business practice to simply rename the item in question. What's that, African woman? You've worked hard to cultivate and establish a unique blend of tea for export. You only wish that your efforts be recognised like that of wines who proudly share their locations of where they are grown and made. No, this is Yorkshire tea now. Likewise, the British Empire declared war and subjugated millions of people around the world for the express purpose of gaining access to the most rich and expensive spices known to man. Modern-day British people honour this effort by using absolutely none of them in any of their dishes. "Oh, looks lovely, Sharon. Proper good scran, that." The modern legacy of the British Empire, after its inevitable collapse, comes in that of the old colonies having the British flag in the corner of their own, like a graffiti artist spraying a giant cock on a train. The old colonies decide to repay this honour by absolutely demolishing us at all sports that we graciously forced upon them at gunpoint. In conclusion, the British Empire was largely a bad idea when it comes to international modern foreign relations. It turns out that oppressing people for hundreds of years makes you about as popular as child molesters or diarrhea.
Oh, jeez. I can't make it. I can't make it. I can't.